I get there. I don't care if the streets are paved with gold. Chase me down, and Lord, I pray when the day comes, you won't forsake
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
What's happening, everybody? It's your main man, Mr. Brookshire, and oh boy, we are so real. Okay, so we are so real talking to you right in the house, right here on the Real Talk with Brookshire show. I feel like I said that like a few times, but without any further ado, I want to bring everybody into you, my special co-host. Of course, we have the most beautiful, talented relationships expert, author, best-selling author, we're going to say, for the future, coming into the house with you. We got Miss Lasana Smith. What's going down, Lasana? How are you?
Hi. So good to be here today.
It's so good for you to be here. You look great, too. Yes,
thank you. You know, I got to
sure.
keep switching it up, make sure that everyone can see all the different facets.
That's what's up. I tell people all the time, go get yourself some clothes because you own the karma, look good because you're looking good, and I appreciate you being here. So today
Appreciate being here.
is Father's Day.
Yes.
Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Happy Father's Day to all the fathers.
Happy Father's Day. Like, you know, wow. When I think about it, of course, I don't have any children. I ain't got no children
I understand.
right now.
Not yet.
Not yet, but I see myself one day as being a father one day. And so, of course, the topic of today, which has been the main topic of the day, was a Father's Day special.
Yeah.
We want to really just talk about what does Father's Day mean to you? What does it mean to us? Talk about a couple of statistics. I know Mr. Redford, Kai Redford, my partner in crime on the BK Experience,
Yeah.
him being a father, he was here with his children, his
Aw.
2 boys. And so I really was throwing some questions out to him as far as in what does Father's Day mean for you? Like, do you prepare for it like a birthday? You know, now when you had it so long, like, what is it for you? And so I think it's going to be interesting chit-chatting with you, being a relationships expert, and then coming from the father's perspective of, you know, and seeing what your opinion is and what your thoughts are on why is there an epidemic of so many fatherless children out here? Because, of course, when you have statistics of almost 24 million children, 24 million children right here in America are living without the absence of a father in their homes. 24 million. So that means that's a third of our country don't have daddies in the homes. What does that mean for us, and what kind of things happen when you're having that in the case? So my question to you is, what happens when you have 24 million kids? That's 1 out of every 3 children grow up without a father. 1 out of every 3. What does that do? What does that do when you hear statistics that 10 million single mothers are living in the U.S. raising their children without fathers? 10 million. What does that come to mind when it comes to relationships, when it comes down to understanding the role of a father, and what does that come for you? What does that do for you?
Well, the first thought that I have, I mean, those statistics are staggering,
Right.
and it's really unfortunate because I believe that it's been on the rise for a really long time, and as a community, as a society, there's something that we have to do to really get fathers to be more in line with their children and really
Right.
take on that responsibility. The first thing that I would say is that fathers are necessary. I think a
Yes.
lot of women don't always give props to fathers for being who they are and for their responsibility in the household, but it is so necessary because
I
there
agree.
is a feminine and a masculine energy. I was talking
Yes.
to somebody today, and he was with his children for Father's Day, and
Mm.
he was saying that his ex-wife has babied their kids. I mean,
Mm.
daughter doesn't know how to cook, son is 20 years old, don't even know how to cut a watermelon.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, just has never done anything
He
because
said cut a watermelon.
well, I mean, that's what it was. I mean,
Right, that's just
how can
funny.
you not know how to cut a watermelon? I would think it's the easiest thing. But I use that as an example just to say that that means that their mom has been totally handicapping them. And as women,
Right.
we tend to be very maternal, very
Right.
loving. We want to nurture and do everything for our
Yes, you
children.
do.
And I get that. However, that's why fathers have to come into play because they balance that. Fathers tend not to be as open and nurturing in that way.
Right.
I read a quote this morning, and it said something like, a mother's love doesn't have to be earned, but a father's love does.
Wow.
And it's true. Fathers don't just give love away. I mean, maybe when kids are young.
Right.
But at some point, you have to earn your father's love.
Right.
And that's what, and I think it's necessary. Women need an edge. Sons need an edge. Fathers make their children step up.
Now, I've heard a saying that, the daddy, especially when it comes to a daughter or a son, but definitely when it comes to a daughter, that they are the ones that speak who that person's supposed to be. So without that, it can be an absence of who they are, their identity. And they're going so many years and so long trying to figure out, well, who am I? Where do I fit in? Because my daddy didn't tell me what my purpose was or tell me what I was put here to do and how I'm supposed to do that. What would be your opinion if you were to hear that or hearing that? What is your opinion on that statistic or
It
that
just
saying?
goes exactly back to what I just said. You have a mom who's being maternal. She's not trying to help a kid necessarily figure out who they are because she's busy making sure their needs are taken care of.
Right.
They're being fed, they're being nurtured, they're being cleaned. I mean, all of that stuff. So the father then is the one that normally comes in and says, okay, son, daughter, this is my expectation of you. This
Right.
is what I feel for you. Even if a mom does say that because she's a mom, she gonna, give them some excuses. Baby,
Right.
it's okay. I know I said you're supposed to go to college and it's all right. Maybe next year. Father would say, oh no.
Right.
We say you going to college. That's what happens in this household.
Right.
If you're not going to go to college, then you're going to have to get a job or you're going to have to leave. And he's going to have that firm hand. And again, both are necessary and both are needed in a household.
So I heard Iana Vincent, she made a comment about, and I said this also to Kaya, that girls need their daddy and father and boys need their fathers. What does
So
that mean for
important.
you? A daddy, a father, and the difference between what a girl needs and what a boy needs.
Yes.
What does that mean for you?
Oh, I've seen that on so many different levels. I know for me personally, my dad and I really didn't get close until I was a teenager. And I didn't get to live with him until after I graduated from college.
Oh, wow.
And so for me personally as a woman, it was huge because I didn't realize that I was off balance.
Oh, wow.
I was really off balance as a woman because of the fact that I didn't have my dad in my life to be there. And when I got to live with him, I got to see mannerisms of what men do and how they act and how they handle things. And then he would tell me things as a man that my mom couldn't tell me because she's not a man. She
Right.
don't know what men want.
Right.
So he would say things, I mean, like, you should wear a matching bra and panty. And I mean, I know it sounds crazy that a father would say that, but he's trying to prepare me. He's like, this is what men like.
Right.
So he was very candid even with me on what he thought was important for men. So
I can
that
understand that.
was really helpful. Men, on the other hand, boys, as they grow up to become men, they need someone to emulate. You can't emulate your mom. You might love your mom.
That'd be
you
too
might,
much.
Right. You might appreciate your mom. Well, and that leads to some other issues.
Exactly, right.
But I mean, who are they going to pattern after? Who are they modeling after?
Right.
If there's no father in the house and there's no uncle or someone else that's close to them that's giving them the opportunity to actually grow up and to have a masculine example, then who do they model?
I agree. Can a mom teach a boy how to be a man, or can a father teach a girl how to be a woman?
No.
Why not?
No, because there's two different energies. I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, yes, I believe that there are women who have more of a masculine energy and there are men who have more of a feminine energy, and
Mhm.
that's fine. However, the way how society is, I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know how to be a man. In my practice as a relationship expert, I've studied men
Right.
and I've gone into really understanding the male mind. But does that mean I'm a man? Can I raise a boy and make him a man? I can't do that. I can't, because I don't really know what it's like to be in a man's shoes.
Wow.
And the same thing as a woman. I know a lot of women who want to be mother and father, and I get it. You have to play that role because you're a single mom.
Right.
God bless. And I don't envy any single mom out there because it is really a challenging
imagine.
job.
Right.
And, I just tip my hat off to women who step up to the plate and they
Right.
do it.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, a woman could still only be a woman.
I can agree
And
with
she
that.
can help a man know what she's looking for in a man and kind of raise him in a certain way. But again, that edge, remember I told you, that's what men bring to the table. They
Right.
bring that edge. They bring that sense of discipline. They
Right.
bring that sense of just responsibility and a higher expectation level.
Mhm.
And a woman tends to bend a little bit more. So sometimes, or she goes on the opposite end and she does too much.
Right.
Right? Whereas the man is just right in the middle.
So now, this is a question. Now, you have a lot of, some fathers that are around,
Yeah.
but yet they are absent. They're there,
Yeah.
but they're not there. They're there, but they're not active. Is there a place to where, how much do you feel someone would need? If you're, I know this is even in relationships where a person say, well, I'm here, ain't I? But you're not
Yeah.
actively participating. Is that the same thing? Is it just good enough for the dad to be a visual piece in the house and them still to be married? Or does that dad have to step up and be a dad? And with that question being answered,
Yeah.
what is a dad?
Oh man, a dad has so many different levels. I mean, obviously, just donating sperm to an egg makes you automatically a father and a dad. Period. I mean, that's just what it is. Now, with that, I mean, obviously, a parent, that's a whole different thing. What is a parent?
Right.
And a parent is someone who nurtures their children and allows them to get to the point to where they can become all that they want to be, all that they came to this planet to be. What I would deem a productive citizen to society. That's exactly what it is that parents should do for their children and nurture them to help them get to that point. Mothers and fathers. They just both have different ways of going about doing it. In my experience, although a father may not always be an active role in the household, I have found that it still plays a role in creating a stability for the child and in the family. And the statistics for children who did not grow up with a father in the household still tend to be much higher than when a father is in the household, even if he didn't play a large role. So it still is important for him to be there.
I totally understand that. Now, what is your opinion on fathers that maybe they want to be fathers, but they can't take the baby mama? And they feel like, in order for me to, and you have some mamas that's like, if you it's a package. You got to have both of us or you can't have any of us. How does that work? What is your thoughts in that situation? Because that happens so
It does.
often.
It makes me sad when I hear stuff like that. And, I just had to take a deep sigh because
Right.
I've seen women do things like that. If you're not going to be with her, then you don't have any rights to your son or your daughter, or she just is away totally because you didn't do things how she wanted you to do things. And it's really unfair to the child. I mean, at the end of the day, it's selfish for a woman to keep her children away from their father unless he's completely abusive or there's something where it's a life-threatening situation for her or the child. It really is selfish for that child not to be a part of their father. I mean, because there's genetics that's involved too. See, people forget about all of that, right? So if you're a kid, you're growing up, you have certain mannerisms. There were mannerisms I didn't even know were my father's until I moved in with him.
Really?
My mom would look at me and she would think I was crazy. Why do you sleep like this? Or why do you do this? And I didn't know why I did it. I just did it because I did it.
Right.
And then I got around my dad and I think, oh my gosh, he does this too.
Oh, wow.
That's where I got this from. And it gave me a sense of self. It gave me a sense of completion.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, for a child who doesn't have the opportunity to be around their father, it's just they're getting to miss a sense of self, and it's really unfair.
So now, what would you say? Because again, I know we don't have that much time, but I know we're trying to hit as much as we can. What would you say for that individual? Let me switch this. Can someone that doesn't have a father, how are their chances? Can they still be just as successful? And what would they need to do with the absence of that father?
You got to create a new role model. I mean, really, what the father does is it becomes a model for the household. It becomes a model of masculinity for the household, even for a woman.
Right.
Girls, let me tell you, if you didn't have a father in your household, please still find an older man that you can talk to, that you can relate to. It's still important to have that masculine energy around, or at least a lot of guy friends to kind of give you some tips. But it's important. So you have to find a model, either someone who's a mentor, someone who's in the neighborhood, find an uncle, find a neighbor, something that you can have as a model.
What do you say to those kids that...
A teacher?
Yeah, a teacher. What do you say to those kids that they feel like, well, daddy left and it's my fault? I'm the reason why he doesn't. Why wouldn't he? Because I mean, I've seen Oprah do these seminars basically on Life Class where you have all these older men that still 40, 50, 60 that still have daddy issues because they don't understand why this person would just leave and not care. What would you say of that to that point?
Well, a lot of times when that happened is during that imprint stage, you know, usually before the age of about 6 or 7, which means that you don't really understand what's going on. You just see life happening,
right?
And you just take all the information in and you just assume something, whether it's true or not. You made an assumption, and now that assumption has become your reality,
right?
And so they grew up with that being fact, even though it's not. And really, what happens at that point is we have to shift and help them have a new story. Maybe even see from their father's point of view why he wasn't there.
Right.
But there's some exploration that needs to happen.
And
they will never be complete as a man if they're not able to go out there and really work through some of these issues.
And I agree with that from just even my own personal situation of, you know, my dad was a master gunnery sergeant Marine Corps. He was the best at what he did. So he had to be stationed in Chicago for the first 10 to 12 years of my life.
Wow.
You know, and so that was a big thing of, you know, this person that you know as dad, but you don't really know him as dad because in your your most tender years, this person is not really around. And if they say they're going to come, they don't come. And then you're trying to figure out how to process to move on in this particular model. You see other people with daddies and mommy, you know, that are giving them money and going to their baseball games and going to their things, but yet you don't have a model there. So I can definitely understand with being able, when you were saying earlier before about being able, you have to go out and find other things that will fit into that place of being able to do that. So what will you say about the dropout rate? And what do you say for those until they can get to that point where they can find that model? How does it, okay, when is it the child's situation to go and find that model, or is it for the adult, even if they're not the parent, to be able to see that child and say, let me embrace this child? How does that work?
Well, there's two different questions that were embedded in there. So the first question was the fact that what's up with these dropout rates? Why is it that these kids are dropping out of school at such a high rate because they don't have a father in the household? And again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about the mom just being really maternal. And sometimes, especially when kids go through their teenage years, they get really rebellious. And it's challenging for a woman to handle that time by herself. So she just wants to be loving. I mean, this kid drops out of school. What's she going to say? You got to live on the street? Now, see, if there was a father in the household, I would say 8 times out of 10, maybe even 9 times out of 10, that father would say, well, if you don't want to be in school, you will be on the street. So that kid would have to get straightened up, or they'll be on the street. A mom will say, oh, I understand. And she might feel some sense of guilt because there's not a father in the household. And so she starts to kind of enable. So that's one of the reasons why I believe that the dropout rates and stuff are so high when it's just the mom and then maybe she's a single parent. She's working all the time. She's not home to help the kids with homework or take them to baseball practice or soccer practice, things that would keep their minds occupied. So what are they doing? They're getting caught up in the wrong crowds with other fatherless children. And they're caught up doing things that they really shouldn't be doing. So that's the first part of that question.
Okay.
The second part of that question we just talked about was, you know, what do you do instead? What does a mom do? And whose responsibility is it?
Right.
Well, if moms, you know, you know your children should have a father in their life, period. So if there's not a father in their life for whatever reason, then find them a role model. That should be a mom's responsibility, whether it's her brother, whether it's, again, her father. So a grandfather can come in and play that role. I mean, help find that. Find mentors for your kids as they're growing up so they have something to attach to as far as a father is concerned. Now, every mom isn't going to be that proactive. And at that point, they're not.
Which is very true.
So at that point, if they're not being proactive, I mean, as a child or as an adult, as an individual, then it comes to a point where you can't keep blaming your parents for everything.
Right.
You got to take responsibility for your life. And as you're taking responsibility for your life, now it's your time to go out and find a mentor.
You know, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because again, every person has a time where they look at daddy and mommy as in daddy and mommy, but they get old enough, usually sometimes it's when they start living life and they say, whoo, I'm either glad I don't have kids at this age. I don't know how you did it. When is there a time, in your opinion, that, you know, children realize that their parents are just humans? When and is that a healthy place to be?
A healthy place to be.
To be able to realize that your parents are humans and they make decisions and they make choices, and they're not like Superman, or like so many kids look at their parents as they're Superman, Superwoman. They can't make any mistake. That's mom, that's dad.
Yeah.
But yet they don't look at them as in, you know, hey, we get tired. We have problems
Being
and
a parent
issues.
doesn't come with a manual.
Right.
It doesn't. I really believe, I think it begins in teenage years, because that's when you're starting to rebel.
Right.
And you're thinking to yourself, my mom doesn't know everything. My dad don't know everything. And that's when I started to realize personally that they were fallible, that they didn't know everything. And then definitely as I got into my, early 20s, like in college and stuff, is when I said, okay, I'm starting to give them advice now, because it's this weird shift that happens.
Right.
You go through this thing where your parents are the world and they know everything.
Right.
And then in your teenage years, you go through this area where your parents don't know anything and you know everything. And then you go into maybe your 20s, especially your early 20s, and you start to think, well, you know what? Maybe they don't know everything. And I know some things too, but maybe they do have a point on some things.
Right.
And then you get to a point where you start to give them advice, and it's almost like you become the parent and
Right.
they become the child, which is so interesting.
That is a very interesting area, and I go through that a lot with my mom.
Yeah.
Coming and asking for advice, and being someone that she looks to for like as her mentoring team of advice.
Right.
And it's such a different place to be. In your opinion, how do you maintain that difference as a child? Like, wow, this is my mom that is actually saying, oh, that's a great point, I'm gonna do that. How does that feel for you?
It's an honor. First of all, I have
Right.
to say that my mom respects my opinion enough to come to me, and or my dad, because again, it's Father's Day, my dad and I do have conversations where he does come to me sometimes for my opinion, and I respect my dad highly. So it's really nice when I get that. Again, once you realize that they are fallible and they don't know everything, then you can come to them at a different level, because now you've grown up, you got some experience from life under your belt, and you can respect them for their experience and what they've done in life. But they're also respecting you, that you might have some new energy, some new thoughts, and you're an individual.
Right.
And so now you can bring something to the table.
So I thought what you said was interesting, being able to, like yourself, my dad came back into the picture when I was like 12, 13 years old, being gone from pretty much when I was like 1 or 2. I mean, my mom and dad's
What
been
was
married.
that like for you when he finally came back?
It was different because my dad was a Marine, so most Marines are structured in a different capacity from just being
Oh, yeah.
trained.
The few, the proud, the Marines.
Right,
I
just-
mean, those
just-
are hardcore people.
Right. Luckily, my mom had a no bring home your crap policy.
Okay.
And so he wasn't allowed to bring the work home. So,
Okay.
but he wasn't really emotional. So he wasn't the one that was he'll be around and he'll give his advice as he said, but he more or less was from the don't do this, I don't want to have to deal with this prevention kind of thing versus the nurturing in so many ways. He didn't get in the way.
Right.
But he did not do a lot of encouraging. He didn't get involved either.
And encouraging, was that more verbal encouraging, or was it just...
He didn't do any of the encouraging. I mean, he more or less, I used to feel when I was younger, he used to come in only when he needed to try to discipline.
Okay.
And being younger, it's just like, okay, if you can't talk to me whenever I'm normally here, you damn sure, excuse my French, ain't gonna talk to me whenever this is younger.
Of
Whenever
course.
I am going through a problem now, you want to jump in and tell me, oh, you causing problems, but yet you won't do anything to prevent it. It's always coming from the negative perspective. So in the beginning, it was very difficult because I was the youngest. And I remember hearing Maya Angelou say this, that some parents are better adult parents than they are children parents.
Like the rearing part
Yeah,
of.
the rearing, the growing up, and because they just don't know it. And I look back and I say, as an adult, as I got a chance to get to know my father as a man, and good
Yeah.
man, hardworking. I don't agree with everything that he does and all the things that he his growth as far as in what he grabs hold to,
Right.
but he's definitely accomplished broker, property owner. He's accomplished. I mean, like I said, been married 35 years.
Which is a huge deal.
Which is a huge deal. Thank
Yeah.
God to my mom being able to sustain and know how. I guess it was just a different time in the mental of people at that time. But as I got to know him, I started realizing how much of a blessing it was that maybe he wasn't there, with the personality that I've grown to be.
And that's a great point. I was reading something today from LeBron,
Mhm.
and he was saying, he didn't grow up with a dad.
Mhm.
And he was saying, would he have been who he is today as LeBron James
Right.
had he had a father around all the time?
I agree
And
with that.
sometimes it's a blessing, and I think that's something we need to remind our viewers today as well, is the fact that sometimes not having a dad around is just as much of a blessing as having one around.
I agree, especially if they're not in the wavelength that you would need, or that you're at the time. I guess your parents would feel, your mom, whoever that is, would feel that would be the best thing. And so, really quick, we only got 2 minutes, and we're going to be wrapping
Okay.
this up. Being that you had to go and live with your father at such an, you were grown. You were a grown woman, pretty
I was
much.
grown.
He's a grown man, and you have to get to know
Yeah.
him. One thing that you have in common was, okay, I know this is my daddy, but
Yeah.
I don't really know this man. I never lived with him. Really quick, how is that, being humble to accept that? How is that for you, a person?
I just know that it was life changing.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it was something that was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I'm so much balanced now as a woman because of it. And I know a lot of men who, when they've dated women who did not have their father in their life, or who do not have a good relationship with their father, recognize the difference between one that's never had that relationship or didn't have a good one,
Right.
and one that does have that relationship and one that does have a good one.
Should a man date a woman, or should a woman date a man that doesn't have good relationships with their fathers or their mothers, or a good outlook on that, in your opinion?
Oh man, that's a whole loaded question for a whole nother show.
I mean, because you hear so many times. I know, for me personally, from a woman's perspective,
Yeah.
if I actually had a former fiance that I believe that it was very important for her to know her daddy
Yeah.
and have a relationship with her father and her mother, definitely her daddy, because I said, how can you respect me and really have a functioning relationship with me if you hate your daddy, the man that brought you into this world? If you have that opinion of him, some of that could be projected onto me. If
Absolutely.
you don't have that cleaned up. How do you feel about that, really fast?
Really fast. I mean, it just goes back to exactly what you said and what we
Mhm.
said earlier. Mothers and fathers are models to children.
Right.
And so if you, as a man, don't like your mother, then you're going to disrespect a lot of other women, because the first woman who you were put here to love, you didn't love.
Uh-huh.
So it is going to play out in other ways, shapes, or form. And the same thing with either not having a good relationship with your father, or not having a father. If you don't have that person to project onto, or maybe at a young age you decided, well, he walked out and he left, so I don't need a man, I don't need that, I have my mom and I'm good. That's going to translate to relationships too. You're going to look at men and feel the same way. I don't need a man, I'm good.
I can agree.
So there's some healing that has to be done for both people in those situations.
I can agree with
but
that.
But the good news is there are lots of people out there that are able to help out. I mean, Kaya Redford, like you said,
Yes.
from the other show, he has a lot of techniques with NLP that can help people with these type of situations. There's really great therapists out there that help with this.
Right.
There's support groups that help out there, and there's some wonderful books that are
Yes,
written
in education.
that will help with this as well. So if you're out there today and you don't have a father in your life, or you didn't grow up with a mom, and you do have some unresolved and unhealed issues, just know that there is help.
There is help.
Yeah.
And there is help, and you're not the only one that has gone through it. And so you just
Not
have to
at
reach
all.
out. I mean, it's not to say that it's common, but I mean, 24 million people on a consistent basis. These are just kids are going through this. So I mean, you not that it's right, but you are not alone, and that there is ways to continue to. And I always say to people, look at the positive side of all of it. Go take your examples from someone that actually accomplished, like you said, LeBron. Did you say LeBron?
Yeah.
Yes, that actually accomplished the best not having, and take their stories and use that as your roadmap of if they can do it, so can I. This has been an amazing Father's Day special. This has been an amazing talk with you. Thank you for being so enlightening, to giving us what your opinion is and telling your stories. Again, everybody, like we say here, right here on the Real Talker Brookshire show, it's where your mind goes, your body will follow. Where your mind goes, your body will follow. There's always another you on the opposite side, on the other side of whatever you're going through. So if any of y'all got daddy issues out there, remember, there's another you waiting. There's another you that has these issues cleared up. There's another you, like you said, when you met your daddy, you felt fulfilled. You felt like things were in place. There's always a way to fulfill and get yourself in the right place as long as you reach for your next self. We love you so much. And until next week, this is Real Talker Brookshire. I'm your main man, Mr. Brookshire, with my beautiful co-host, Miss Lasana Smith. And we will talk to you next week right here at 7:15 PST. I holla.
So bring your body over and dance tonight. You're so sweet, knocks me off my feet. Said he never seen nobody shape so neat. He pulled up to my bumper, asked me for my number. They're calling tonight because they know I got that thunder. And I'm gonna work his body, work his body, work his body, ay. Until he say, okay. Work his body, ay. Until he say, what he say?